So to understand our relationship with food, it helps to understand how human diets work from a biological standpoint, and then we can talk about how they work from a cultural standpoint. Okay, so humans are omnivores. Hopefully we all know this, but basically that just means that we can eat anything. It comes from the Latin to devour everything, so we can eat plants, animals. It doesn't matter, we aren't specialists in terms of what we eat. We'll eat pretty much anything. Okay, but just because we can doesn't mean we should, right? Or that we do. Okay, so humans can technically eat grass or live on just grains, but you're not going to be very healthy and you're not going to feel your best, and it's not going to be the best food to sustain your body. So just because we can doesn't mean we should or that we actually do. And what we actually eat is more limited than what we can eat. Usually it's based on what's available, what's around you, some biological restrictions. So there are some things we can't eat, some things that will make us sick, some things that will kill us. So we obviously don't eat those things. There's some cultural restrictions on what is appropriate to eat. And we'll talk about how we define what's appropriate and how that changes based on different categories of people in the culture, things like gender or social status. And then, of course, there's personal preference. So you don't want to exclude the idea that what you might like something that your neighbor doesn't, even though you grew up in the exact same culture. Like, I like fish, my brother does not, and that is not a cultural difference, that's a personal preference. Okay? And remember that, like pretty much everything else about human culture, our diet evolved to be flexible and fluid and adaptable. Because humans are generalists, we need to be generalists in our diet as well. Okay, we can survive a lot of different places, and part of that is because we have evolved to be flexible and adaptable, not just in our behavior, but also in our diet. So if we want to talk about the evolution of the human diet, we need to talk about the evolution of humans, obviously. So 6 million years ago, our ancestors were tree-dwelling fruit eaters. The image there is from my time in Belize. This is not an ancestor of humans, but this is a monkey. So we shared a common ancestor millions and millions and millions and millions of years ago. Not a direct ancestor, but a fun picture for you. But 6 million years ago, our ancestors were tree-dwelling fruit eaters. So they're living in trees, they're eating a lot of fruit. And then 1.8 to about 2 million years ago, our ancestors started to eat meat. And they weren't hunting, they weren't actively collecting meat, but they were participating in what's called opportunistic scavenging. So you're finding a dead or decomposing animal and you eat the meat that's there, that's in front of you. Okay. Eventually, we start to see cooperative hunting among our ancestors. We can see this behavior in chimpanzees today. So remember that humans and chimpanzees shared a common ancestor. Not that one evolved from the other, but that we shared a common ancestor millions of years ago. And so we can see this behavior in chimpanzees today. You can see cooperative hunting in other ape species. So basically what chimpanzees do, this is very simplified, but there will be a troop of monkeys and you'll have some chimpanzees whose job it is to scare and flush out the monkeys. So they'll come from around the top, over the top of a tree and down, and scare the monkeys into basically a trap where you have other chimpanzees waiting who will grab one and then they will kill and eat that animal. Okay, so where you see a shift in human evolution from tree-dwelling fruit eaters to starting to engage in some opportunistic scavenging, starting to eat a little bit of meat, and then starting to actually cooperatively hunt meat. And this is happening over millions and millions of years, so this is a very, very slow process. And then about 400,000 years ago, we see the beginning of fire, and we're starting to use fire to cook meat. Okay, and so there are a lot of different theories about how actually cooking meat changed the path of human evolution and influenced how we kind of evolved into what we think of as humans now. And so this use of fire kind of accompanies a digestive system shift, and so this allows us to start eating a more varied diet. And so instead of just eating mostly fruit or mostly leafy greens with an occasional chunk of meat thrown in there, when we start to cook meat and start to consume meat more frequently, we see a shift in our digestive system at the same time that is allowing for this more varied diet. Okay, and then one theory suggests that this led to rapid brain growth and development as a species. Okay, and so there are a lot of different theories about how our brains developed and how language developed. So one theory is that as we're sitting around the fire cooking meat, we started to need to talk to each other about things. Or as we're hunting cooperatively, maybe we needed to talk to each other about those things as well. Okay, so there are a lot of different theories, but the idea is that this change in the human diet actually changed our course of evolution. Okay. And so what we actually eat does not equal what we can eat. We already said that. But what does that mean? And so most human diets are consisting of plant and animal products. So obviously there is a shift in Western society toward an increase in vegetarian diets or low meat diets. This doesn't reflect the pattern worldwide or cross-culturally. Okay, so most human diets are consisting of both plants and animal products, not one or the other. So we do kind of continue with this varied diet. But meals tend to be formed around what's called a core legume fringe pattern. So the core being a complex carb of some sort, legume or meat being a bean. So a legume is like a bean, a peanut is a legume as well. So a bean or a small amount of meat, something that provides protein. And then a fringe item, which is something that's just very flavorful, something you enjoy. Okay, and so we see this core legume fringe pattern pretty consistently throughout human culture. And the importance here is that it fulfills both the biological needs, so you get all the nutrients you need as humans, and also cultural needs, so taste and flavor. And that's really where that fringe aspect of the core legume fringe pattern comes in, is that you're fulfilling that cultural need for something flavorful and something that tastes very good to you. And so this is, again, another example of a biocultural process, right? So we're seeing both culture and biology interacting to create a human diet.